So I'll be the first to say that I do agree with Republicans more than Democrats. I agree more with their beliefs than Democrats do. But both sides need to do better in the kind of bills that gets passed. Um, and I want to talk about one subject. Is it me? Is it just me, or is it other people who feel the same way? I feel like the people in Congress right now, they're older, kind of too old, you know, and not to discriminate with ages, but I feel like they're out of touch with today's time. They're old enough, they're older to where they were able to get, cars, housing, and their wealth in a different time. So, their struggles right now aren't the same as people, who are younger in the 20s and 30s and stuff. I feel like they were able to get in and and do what they had to gain the kind of wealth or assets that they gain. Somebody who's 60 right now, that's back when they were able to get a house, which was much cheaper. Cars were much cheaper, and certain opportunities were a lot easier to get into. But I feel like they're out of touch. Somebody now who's 70, you know, late 60s, or 80s, now in Congress, they have multiple houses. Some have a mansion, multiple, luxury cars. So they could care less about passing bills to give back to American citizens, and they can care less about ending Social Security tax and ending income tax. They can care less about all those things because that's not their worries. And I think that's where a lot of the default is we have too many people in Congress right now who are just dinosaurs. I just said they're dinosaurs, and they're too out of touch with the reality and the struggles and of what people are going through now in much younger age groups. Uh, and I also want to touch on when you when you go to a new job or any job you start, you go on as a manager or a leader, you're you change things, you change certain processes and certain functions of the job to make it easier, better for customers and for associates. But the thing about Congress, things haven't changed with certain acts and certain bills. Something from the early 1900s. Why do we have that in place? Why hasn't something been discussed? Once again, like with Social Security tax back in 1913. And then I think, and then later on, income tax. Why hasn't certain things changed? Why do we still have you know bills and acts still in effect and it's still law today? Over 100 and 20 years later. It's like Congress doesn't believe in change, and I think that's where a lot of fault is at. And we need people who are younger and more in touch with today's society of what's going on, the struggles of what's going on and taking place, here in this day and age. But when you have people who are just much older who have everything, um, they could care less about what's going on. And it's not all about insurance. It's not all about insurance. A lot of people would rather just forget insurance and just take a check each month or each year to buy groceries and or to apply it towards their rent and mortgages. But it just seems everything just constantly be around Obamacare and health insurance and it just uh, Congress really built their wealth from being in Congress off our taxpayers' money. It's crazy if you go to do a little research and you see how many people in Congress have gained wealth from passing certain bills, that helps out their cities and their states. But it's just screwed the American people. So you know, just please, y'all, just leave y'all comments. You know, really want to know what you guys are thinking, or you know, this is just my opinion. Have a good night.